As protests against racism and police brutality continue to rage across the US, major social media platforms like Twitter, Reddit, and YouTube have publicly announced their support for equality and social justice, saying they stand against racism. But are they part of the problem? What responsibility do these platforms bear for actually furthering a global culture where hate and divisive ideas are circulated? Many have been outraged by the announcements, saying that these very platforms have encouraged and profited from the growth of online hate groups. Experts say that white supremacists have easily learned to use this to their advantage to recruit and radicalize people in an unprecedented way.
But white power groups are very sophisticated in their use of the internet, both social media and other elements. And what they're seeking to do, if you think of the internet as this huge multi-dimensional beehive with billions of little spaces in them, and each of those spaces is a site of some sort. What the white right tries to do is enter each of those cells and fill it with race hate and the ideology of white power. They don't have to, in a sense, argue for violence. They can simply argue for their ideology, and they can be very aggressive towards people who they think are lesser than them. Their goal is to push people out of the internet. People that find this oppressive, uncomfortable and demeaning pull back and leave the spaces. So those spaces get filled up constantly.
This swarm behavior is actually good for a social media company because it actually allows them to collect more detailed data on more consumers for their advertisers.
If you continue to think of the internet then as this huge beehive with billions of cells, then social media companies make their money out of two things: the expansion into more and more of those cells, and the rate at which the expansion occurs. That's really what their algorithms are aiming for. Faster, more, bigger, wider. And there's all sorts of ways they monetize that. On a Facebook page, for instance, whatever you do is captured by Facebook and fed into a profile.
Based on a number of factors, age, gender, income being some of them, our profiles are then served to advertisers based on products they want to sell to particular demographics.
A number of advertisers discovered that they were being served up to essentially neo-Nazis, because the profile of neo-Nazis is usually white, male, moderately well educated, living in a first world country, usually urban. That makes them likely to be people with significant spending opportunities or spending capacity, and they'll be buying certain sorts of product.
Twitter recently took the unprecedented step of attaching a warning to Donald Trump's famous tweet about shooting looters, but Facebook has so far refused such measures.
Facebook is a corporate body. Whatever it does, it will do so in order for it to survive. And Zuckerberg, the CEO, has said many times that what he's looking for constantly is ways not of getting this stuff off the internet, but protecting people from exposure to it if they don't want it. And that's very interesting because we've got many hundreds of thousands of private groups on Facebook. And almost anything could be happening in those groups.
In June, Facebook employees staged a virtual walkout, unhappy with the company's refusal to do anything about Trump's message about looting. As for Reddit, Twitter, and YouTube, the question remains: are their actions too little, too late?